All right, good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Community Preservation Committee of December 8th, 2021. We are meeting remotely pursuant to the governor's emergency order concerning the COVID pandemic, that order being extended and allowing remote meetings until I believe it is April of 2022. For members of the public who wish to observe or participate in the meeting, you can connect through Zoom remotely. The Zoom address is as part of our meeting agenda, which has been posted with the town clerk. We do not have any members of the public actually participating this evening, so the meeting will just involve the committee members. Few ground rules that we usually have, which is all votes will be by roll call in order to ensure that we have a clean transcript. And I would like just remind everyone that we will, you should announce your name or I will call on you before you speak. And in order to confirm that everyone is connected by audio, at least, I'm going to begin by calling a roll call right now for attendance. Okay, so Mr. Barnes.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Crocker.
Yo.
And Bob Dermody, I understand, will be joining us later. And when he does, we'll note that for the record. Laura Dorfman is absent. Rich Foster.
Here.
Chris Gerstle.
Here.
Jean McKnight, who is has conflict. She's is absent. She's going to be attending the planning board meeting. Rick Zimbo.
I'm here.
Okay, and the chair, Peter Pingator, I am present. Brief updates under chairman's updates. I'm not certain about this, if I gave you an update or not, that we had met before, that we had presented to the select board concerning our amendments to the community preservation plan. I think that I did. Our next in our tour of committees and boards that are stakeholders in the plan, we will be presenting to the Park and Rec commission this next board meeting, next meeting, which I think is next Monday. Do I have that right, Kristen? Okay. One thing that I've been working with offline with Rick Zambone on proposed amendments, red lines to the community preservation plan, and Rick had suggested that go to the Word document of the CPA plan and take out each applicable section, those sections between the pages of, I believe it's 12 and 24, basically extract those and create a Word document and give that to the particular stakeholder. So for example, with community housing, where there's an assessment of need and goals and subjective factors to be considered in connection with funding a community housing proposal, to kind of take that, to actually take that out, created a Word document and provide it to the stakeholder or holders and ask for their input with respect to, specifically with respect to those sections. So didn't have an opportunity to do that today because of my schedule. But what I would intend on doing is, for example, with respect to community housing, I'll forward that to Reg Foster, who's our representative from the Needham Housing Authority. And then Reg can bring it back to the Needham Housing Authority. And then when we present to the Needham Housing Authority, perhaps we'll have some feedback from the Housing Authority by that time, but you'll have kind of a working document that's in a bite-sized piece that you can actually get your arms around, you know, a 2 or 3 page document, which specifically directs you to look at your assessment of needs and intended goals and what you think a subjective factor should be in assessing a request for community housing. So that, and the same would apply with Park and Rec, and the same would apply with Conservation Commission and open space, and it follows. Does that make sense to all of you? And I'll start. I was picking on Reg, so it makes sense to you, Reg.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've actually already done what you just said.
Oh, so he's already done his work. Okay, so that's good. So do you want, while we're just on that topic though, I assume that you would like a representative from the Community Preservation Committee to go to the Housing Authority, or do you want and present, or do you want to just do your work? We don't necessarily need to appear, but do you think that would be beneficial?
Well, we're open to that happening. We had actually hadn't realized that that was available to us. So we had distributed the Word document to the commissioners last month, and they are due to present their suggested changes by our meeting coming up next week. And then we were going to get that back to you by the end of the year.
Okay, do you think it's beneficial if we appear before you next week? At the
Um,
Wednesday meeting?
I think let me offer that to the board. We have a lot of other things on our agenda these days, so we'll see what they.
Or maybe the month following, because by then the
Yeah.
work will be in. Well, maybe we'll do it that way. That's
Exactly.
okay. I don't want to run your committee for you. But so our next stop is going to be Park and Rec. Okay. All right. So those are my announcements. The other announcement is that Marcus Nelson, who was going to appear before us and talk to us about Noire implementation on a committee level, is under the weather. And so I had texted back and forth with him and proposed perhaps that he could appear before us at our next scheduled meeting, which would be on December 22nd. Okay. So the next item is the review of our CPC application edits, basically the draft standard questions and requests. And what I was going to say with respect to that document was, first of all, Laura's not here. We don't really have, not everyone is here. And what I would propose that we do, and I think even if we had full attendance at this point, what I would propose that you do is when you're assigned, what we'll do is we'll go through our applications, we'll assign and we'll get assignments on who is the liaison for each of these particular requests. The next step is to inform the applicant that they're eligible or not eligible, and then ask them for follow-up information, just generally speaking. And then we usually do what we call our due diligence questions. And it may be that we could use this form, the red line, Laura's input, my input, everyone else's input, as kind of a working document that each liaison can look at and review and cut and paste and forward as that initial blast of, as applicable, here are the documents that we would like to have from you. So kind of like if it's a menu of like, say, 16 different requests for documents, pick out the ones that are applicable to yours and use those as a basis, and then add on to it, if you will. So it kind of gives you a jump start. And this is kind of an working document that will finalize by the time we're going through our next full funding cycle, but it may have some utility in this funding cycle as well. So anyone's view on that, suggestions? How do you feel about that approach? Yes, Ms. Rick.
Yeah, Peter, I think the suggestion is fine. I do have a comment though. I took a look at all the applications we received, as well as the list of questions that came out. And maybe I missed it, but what I thought was missing out of that was the funding schedule and the total cost for the project. I looked through the applications, and in some cases it's fairly straightforward. It's a one-year funding event. In other cases, the funding will be over multiple years, and they may have just requested, a scoping study or design money or something to that effect, but we don't have a clear indication of what the estimated cost will be by project over the entire life of the investment. So what, in the case of, that I just outlined, perhaps the scoping study would be 50,000, the design would be 250,000, and the project cost would be 2.5 million, and then we get a total project cost, and you'd put down the anticipated time frame for each of those requests for money. Right now, we may only have the initial request. And so even if it's not a full-blown number, a back of the envelope estimate would serve the purpose as well. But I just think somewhere in either the application or the follow-up information for January 1st, it would be helpful to have that information.
Okay, that's an additional standard request. That's a really good one. We do have a kind of a generic, please list the anticipated project cost and provide a budget with line itemization, but I understand your point exactly. So, so that's an additional request.
I just say that because I think that would be helpful for us for that first meeting in January. As we start to put together the financial plan.
Okay. I can take that on because it's really one additional request. And I can forward that to Cecilia. And okay, that's an important additional request that should be in the form, but understand that what I'm saying is for you as the individual liaison, take over this form and use it as applicable. So and so now, again, that's the other question that I have for the board, but that's really helpful, Rick. Let's stay on what Rick's comment or his direction here. Are there additional requests for information that you think should be as part of this generic request? Anyway. Okay. So with that, we'll make that addition. Remember, it's an organic document. So we have a lot of time between now and next, November, October to finalize it. But with that additional request, we'll put this out as kind of a working document of suggested requests for documents. Make sense to everyone?
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So I don't think we need a resolution. It's a working document, part of our project here. Okay. So now, and actually, why don't we finish some housekeeping matters? Let's go to the minutes for our July 28th, 2021 meeting. And I assume everyone's had an opportunity to review them. I believe this was before Reg was a member of the committee. And so Reg would abstain on a roll call vote, but can I have a motion to approve the minutes of our July 28th, 2021 meeting?
Motion to
So
approve
moved.
minutes. Oh,
Okay, so motion is made by Chris Gersel and it's seconded by Joe Barnes. All right, discussion. All right, hearing none, let's have a vote. We'll do
Just
by-
one point of information, I guess.
Yes.
Without my vote, do you have a quorum to approve the minutes?
Oh, God. Oh,
Yes. Yeah, we have
Joe
five.
Joe came in.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
we do have a quorum. We
Okay.
have 5 as a quorum, and that is a good point of information. Okay, and now we'll have a roll call vote going in alphabetical order. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
aye,
Dermody. Oh, sorry, Dermody is not present. Dorfman is not present. Foster,
Abstain.
Gersel,
aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so now that moves us on to the main event which is a review of our CPC applications for purposes of eligibility. Well, what I had sent out to you folks was this Department of Revenue grid. We would call it a cheat sheet, but which addresses eligibility. You can look at that. And also what we've done in the past is also refer specifically to the Community Preservation Act, which is a section of your manual that you have as a member of the committee. And we usually rely on the definition sections. And then we actually begin with section 5B2, which has to do with what the Community Preservation Committee's recommendations are to town meeting. Okay, so I think what I'd like to do on this is be a little more, I'm sorry, I'm being a little more aggressive, if you will, and speaking first, because it just has to do with walking us through step by step on the legal analysis for eligibility. I think it makes sense to do it that way. And then we can have discussion on each point and then a vote. All right, so if you bear with me, what I'd like to do is first address, I think what we can do is we have the first 4 applications are applications by the Needham Housing Authority. What we can do, I think, is maybe it might be most efficient is to, I think we can discuss them all and vote separately, but if you're open to just having a discussion and a vote separately, I'll do it that way too. But that's my instincts are to discuss them all and vote separately, but I'm open to suggestions on it. Mr. Zimba.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, on the application on the Housing Authority for number 3,
Yes.
it has to do with the purchase of East Militia Heights property up there.
Yes.
I'm going to have to recuse myself from this particular application for 2 reasons. Number one, and most importantly, I'm on the board of the Charles River Center, and it's mentioned in the application by the applicant as us being a possible partner in this process. So until that's settled and resolved, and if it's resolved that we are going to be a partner, then I think I would have to continue to recuse myself. If it's resolved that we're not going to be a partner, then I could probably participate. But in the meantime, I think on this particular item, I have a need to recuse myself.
Okay, so I think that tilts us into the direction of discussing and voting separately. Okay, that way, when we get to the third application, I think that's what it is, then you can recuse yourself from any discussion, but you can participate fully in the discussion and the voting on all the other applications. All right, so let's start with.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can
good.
I ask for a point of information on that?
Yes.
Since I'm new, I'm a newbie, and so I don't even remember from a few years ago. But can you clarify, first of all, what would we be voting on, number one? And what is it about what we're voting on that would lead to, I don't know what to call it, an ethical requirement or on Rick to recuse himself from voting?
Okay, so what we will ultimately do after we discuss is make a determination of eligibility. And so we would have a resolution. I have it written in one of my emails that I'll pull up that essentially says that there is a vote that the grant request is eligible for funding under the CPA. And then there is a vote. So there's a discussion regarding eligibility.
Why would that lead to Rick being in a position where he ought to recuse himself?
Well, for example, say Rick was really interested in grabbing that property on behalf of his agency, Charles River. Well, what if it looked like he voted against eligibility in order to gain some sort of advantage for the Charles River. That would
And
be.
of
an
course, we're
advantage.
just talking about a hypothetical here, but okay, I understand what you're saying.
So that's kind of a
But are we
roadblock.
making a fact-based determination here?
Sure. I mean, we're
Let
applying.
me
in fact, we're
extend
applying
my
fact.
question and say, if in fact is a requirement for Rick to recuse himself, would I not need to recuse myself from the vote, at which point we would drop below a quorum and we could not address any of those applications tonight?
You are available to vote, but you are not, and you are available to vote. But there is a custom and not a requirement that a representative of the housing authority would not be the liaison. That is an advocate for
No,
that.
I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the vote tonight.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I'm answering it indirectly by saying everyone, Chris Gersel can vote on Park and Rec, and you can vote on Housing Authority. But
do I not have an interest in approving it, and therefore on the same basis that Rick is offering to recuse himself, I should offer to recuse my vote as well?
So I don't think that, well, first of all, the question of a conflict of interest is really, there's really, I would say in this instance, is really a question of appearance. And so, in fact, Rick might push back on me and say that I want to vote. But the conflict of interest question, really, there's always just the question of appearance. In this case, we have a long history of custom where appointed members from particular stakeholders vote on all applications. Obviously, I guess we could say that there's, you're biased, but I don't know that you're using, this kind of process to work an advantage for some sort of outside other agency. But what you're actually really asking is this: should we have a custom or a practice that any representative of a particular stakeholder should not vote on questions of eligibility or funding? And the answer is, well, that hasn't been our custom or practice. And if you think Rick should vote anyway, well, the question really of a conflict is a judgment call. And he's already made the determination that he's recused.
Yeah, Peter, just to clarify, it's because I also represent another entity outside of this process. And, it would be like, I mean, there's a number of examples that are floating around town recently with respect to conflicts between representatives on boards and other private interests. And that there's no legal requirement, but it's more, as you indicated, it's a perception. And what I really trying to do is avoid the perception of a conflict more than anything. I feel I could very easily, in my duties as CPC, go through and do the evaluation, whatever. But I want to avoid any perception that there may be a bias in what I do. So for that reason, I just decided I want to do myself.
Okay, we're going to move on because we're going to start discussing how many angels can dance on the head of a pin.
3.
So, all right. Okay, so now let's begin with our first application, FY 2301. And that is an application by the Needham Housing Authority. And the request so it's under community housing. And this is a request for the completion of 3 property conditions reports for the Needham Housing Authority's federally subsidized housing developments. So that is a request for the funding of funds available to develop property conditions reports. The application is pretty detailed and very helpful in what the purpose of the property conditions reports will be. And it's under community housing. First of all, does anyone have any questions regarding the request? Okay, hearing none. I think that this falls under, of course, under community housing. And if we look to section 5B2, that it is where, and the language that we refer to there is funding for the acquisition, creation, preservation, or support of community housing. And this would appear to me to be either fall under preservation and or support of community housing. There's a further definition of support of community housing, which is rather broadly defined. It includes all matters of programs, grants, loans, etc., to individuals and to entities that operate or manage affordable or community housing for the purpose of making housing affordable. So I think that it's a pretty broad definition for support. And this also, I believe, fits under preservation, which is also defined pretty succinctly as protection of personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction. It seems that when you're examining what the conditions of NHA's federally subsidized housing are, is that is the first step in preservation. Questions? Comments? Artie Crocker.
So, I mean, it seems like it would fit under what we should fund. I do remember a couple of years ago, I thought we had a request to fund an administrative position. Did we have that? And I thought we went into the direction of not fitting into what our money should be spent for on our CPC money. Does anyone else remember that conversation? I'm not saying this fits into that category. I'm saying the opposite. So what does everyone remember about that?
Well, we actually did fund the community housing specialist, which was Karen Sonnenberg's position at a 50% level for, I think, a 2-year period. I did my own research. I don't have it in front of me, but there's a Community Preservation Alliance actually advisory that suggests the way to jumpstart the development of community housing is to fund a community housing coordinator. So, and so that the Community Preservation Alliance advocates that. The most recent example of that.
But Peter, is there different, are we differentiating between like a coordinator, a specialized more position versus the main administrator? I just want to clarify in my head. I just don't remember right now what our conversation was.
Okay.
I'm just curious. More for going forward. Like, because I didn't think we were. I thought we had the conversation like the pure administrative purpose and the normal role. I thought we were not heading towards, but a specialized purpose. Yes.
Right. I think that you're right. I thought that we had a discussion concerning that. And so, and that is, we didn't want to be in a position where we were funding an administrative assistant each year, every year.
Yeah.
But that we wanted to use it if it was focused and specialized, or if it was for a limited period of time or for a particular interest, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we did. That's how we and now with Karen Sonnenberg, her salary is now being funded out of the town budget. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does. No, that does clarify. I just wanted to clarify what we have done versus, is that tells about what direction we will do. And so for me, this seems to fit into the category of what we would fund.
Okay, but now remember with 01, we're just actually providing funds in order for the housing authority to conduct a property conditions report. Okay, there is another application which is actually for assisting them in paying a employee who will basically be working to jumpstart the redevelopment of the housing authority. So that fits in closer to what we have funded in the past in Karen Sonnenberg's position. And it also fits kind of squarely into what the Community Preservation Alliance advocates, or has been advocating in order to quote, jumpstart your community housing projects. But we'll get to that. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Sure, yeah, no, I appreciate that, Peter. I just wanted to throw it out there to make sure that we have a little clearer understanding, at least for myself, a little clearer understanding
Yep.
where we're going.
Okay,
thank
good. That's a great, no, that's a good point. Okay.
you.
You're establishing kind of a guideline and a line that you don't really want us to cross. I think I understand that. Okay, Rick Zimbo, comment.
Yeah, Peter, thank you. I think this falls into a category that we could approve for funding. I think one important aspect of this is the condition assessment reports will also help the committee when we get the next request for funds. Because I would expect that the condition report would delineate between the cost for maintenance versus the cost for renovation or preservation. And that's going to have to be part of our determination during the next round. You know, is some of this just maintenance, or is this truly renovation or preservation? And we need to draw that line, and I would hope that the results of this, the condition assessments, would help us in that vein.
Okay. All right, any other further comments or questions? right.
Just offer a point of information.
Great, go.
That it is actually for 3 existing conditions reports and 1 site survey. So it's actually 4 reports. But not relevant to tonight. And that will, we'll clearly explore that in much greater detail next in January or February.
Okay, so then what I would do is I will make the first motion, and then it can be seconded. And I've drafted it ahead of time. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, Mr. Zambone.
Hey, Bob.
Hey,
All right, I want to
everybody.
note, all right, note for the record the time that Bob Dermody has joined the meeting. Okay, so what I will do is I'll make this motion, move that the community, and this is open to anyone's editorial comments, we'll develop a standard form that we'll use for all 10 of the applicable applications. Move that the Community Preservation Committee determine that CPC application FY 2023-01 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of community housing. Is that acceptable to the committee?
I second that.
Yep,
Okay,
it is,
that's-
it is.
A discussion well, I guess now we're gonna have an amendment. All right, yes, let's go back. Comments? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna go roll call vote. Barnes,
Aye.
hold on for a minute, please. I'll keep the notes together. Crocker.
Aye.
Bob Dermody.
Abstain.
Okay. Dorfman is absent. Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, moving on to O2. This is another request by the Needham Housing Authority. And this is a request for pre-development design services. You can see that the project request, the project cost is $1.2 million. And the intended purpose is to engage an AE firm to prepare preliminary design required to obtain zoning relief and complete other due diligence in connection with the redevelopment and rehabilitation of the Linden Chambers development, all as detailed very carefully and thoroughly in the application. So this is, again, is a request under community housing. If we look to the language of the statute, it would appear to be both, fall under both preservation as well as support for community housing. It would appear to me that it is eligible for funding under the act, but I would welcome anyone's comments or questions concerning it.
I think it clearly meets the standards that have been established. I would support the application.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, let's have our motion. We'll track the same language that I had been using, which is the motion is that the Community Preservation Committee determine that CPC application FY 2023-02 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of community housing. I'll make that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Approve.
Foster,
Aye.
Ursel,
Aye.
Zamboni,
Aye.
and Pingatore, the chair, votes aye. Moving on now to FY 23-03. This is also an application by the Needham Housing Authority. This is a request for funding in connection with the potential purchase of East Militia Heights Drive property. And it's a property is described at in response to question number 9 at page 2 of the application. Really appreciated the little background information there. It was pretty neat to read about. But in essence, it's a request for funding in order to purchase, that would be acquire, community housing. It seems to me that is quite clearly falls under the act in support of community housing, but I'm open to discussion concerning that. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, hearing none, we will go on to the motion. I'll make the motion. Yes,
One quick question. I'm just rereading the application again, and maybe I missed it, but what do they mean by surplus property? Is that an Army term?
right, that's a question for Reg Foster. I think that it is a government term, but let's have Reg answer that.
Yes, so they had servicemen, families of service people living there until the end of 2018, connected with other military activities in the area, but not the Nike side, of course, Nike missile base. And then in 2019, they determined they didn't want to do that anymore. And then, yes, it's a term of art, the whole process where they declare that there's no further use by the federal government and that they're going to put it up for sale.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, I will make the motion and then I'll ask someone to second it. That motion moved that the Community Preservation Committee determined that CPC FY 2023-03 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of community housing. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Dermody, okay.
Can I make one point of discussion here before you take the vote
Further
here?
discussion,
Yeah.
discussion. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate Rick's offer to recuse himself and respect the reason he did it. But I don't believe that there's a requirement for it in actuality, but but certainly respect it. And also, we've already discussed internally that if there is an interest that develops on the part of the Charles River Center over the next few weeks within our review period, that would require amending our proposal to accommodate their interests, we would certainly be very open to doing that.
All right, thanks, Reg. And also just a point of clarification. The chair was taking no position on the question of whether or not Rick Zamboni should recuse himself or not in this discussion or the vote. Okay. Okay, hearing that. Thank you for your comments. Let's have a vote. Barnes. Joe?
We got a
Joe?
frozen Joe
Okay, that's okay.
Frozen Joe.
We'll get back to Joe in a sec. Okay.
when he thaws out.
All right, here
There
he
he
is.
is.
He froze to the
Okay.
connection.
All right.
Froze.
I'm not muted. You can't hear me?
No,
I
no,
can hear you now.
your connection froze.
Yeah, you're
Remember when our moms told us, don't make funny faces because it might freeze that way? Well, here we are.
okay. That's not true. I thought you looked lovely, Joe. Anyway, that's a yes, right, Joe? You vote yeah, aye.
I'll vote yes for the third time, yes.
Okay, Barnes, Crocker,
Yes,
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zamboni. Rick, you're muted.
Intentionally.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, no, you need to
yourself.
abstain. Oh, how do we do that? Do we just recuse or abstain? I can't remember. So that's my question, but all right. Rick has recused himself from the discussion and from any voting. Okay, note that for the record, and the chair votes aye. Okay, that brings us to FY 2304, which is the fourth and final application by the Needham Housing Authority, and this is a request for funding for the for NHA Assistant Executive Director position. This is a request for funding, a director who will assist in the modernization and development initiative of the Housing Authority, with the Housing Authority funding 50% of the salary, and a request that the CPC fund the other 50% of the salary. Let's see, it would appear that we funded the similar kind of project in the past, as we referenced earlier. And it also is, and I think that it falls under supportive community housing, and it's one of those reference points that the Community Preservation Alliance brings forward as a way of jumpstarting the development of community affordable housing in your town. Does anyone have, so I think that it falls, it is eligible under the act. Does anyone have any questions regarding the application and the question of eligibility? Rick Zamboni.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's nothing to do with eligibility. I agree with, this falls under the same category as we had for the Affordable Housing Trust person. And I'm assuming there's some backup information available for the requested salary. Total salary of 195,000. I am sure that's going to draw questions from the Finance Committee.
well, that was, I think that's 2 years, right? Is that 2
Correct.
years?
Right, just
Oh, is that for 2 years? I'm
That's
sorry.
for- Yeah, that's for 2 years, Rick.
Okay, never mind.
so
take that
that was a good question that I had as well, and I think that that's right. Is that right, Reg? It's a 2-year cycle.
Correct.
Right?
It's not only 2 years, but it's also fully burdened with fringe benefits like health
Okay.
costs and so forth.
Okay, and that
All right,
too, of
thank you.
course, right, and I think Rick's just being helpful there, because question of that kind of question really goes
Right,
beyond
right.
the scope of what our discussion is tonight, which is just strictly eligibility, but that's something to be aware of. Okay, good question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
further comments or questions?
I have a question maybe for Reg.
Okay,
Without, not at all passing judgment on the applications. The Housing Authority has 4 here tonight. Couple of them rather expensive, and again, probably very necessary. I guess my question is this part of a long-range plan that we will see additional 3 or 4 applications each year that will meet the needs, or have to meet the needs of the Housing Authority, or is this pretty much a one-time large request that'll be made of the CPC?
No, it's the former. So it's part of a 5 to 10 year modernization redevelopment initiative that we launched last summer. And you will hear a lot more about it when you dig in with your questions in January and February. One of the whole process is the whole initiative is focused on redeveloping all of our inventory, all 296 units that have not not been updated, modernized, or need to be torn down and redeveloped over the next 5 to 10 years, and also focused on building 121 new units that don't exist today. The funding requirements will be different depending on which units that we go after, but a lot of this money will come from outside of Needham. We projected in 2018, 2019 that with the expenditure of $5 to $10 million of CPA funds, we can attract over $120 million of outside funds into Needham. And when I say outside, I mean not Needham taxpayer funds, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful, Reg. Thank you.
And I will say one more thing, since you gave me the opportunity. One of the things about getting these kinds of projects going is there's a lot of upfront costs that you have to kind of spend in order to get to the position of being able to attract that outside money into the projects. And so what we'll be asking for from the CPA over the next year or 2 or 3 will be sort of front end loaded, but it won't go all the way at this level, all the way through the 5 to 10 year period.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that further information, Reg. Appreciate that. Okay, so any other questions okay, we have a couple. All right, so I don't know who raised their hand first, so we're going to go with the vice chair, Artie Crocker, first.
And again, my apologies for not remembering. We funded something like this before. This is a request for a 2-year time period. I do not remember the time period before. So how do we want to feel? How are we going to want to feel about time periods? Or are we going to see it strictly more as a get the job done? We're funding a job. I mean, it's an executive administrator, it's assistant position, and it sounds like, for all we know, it may become permanently at some point. But how are we looking at this?
Okay, so I think Kristen can correct, and Cecilia correct me on this, but I believe we did a 2-year cycle with Karen Sonnenberg's position. Am I right about that, Cecilia and Kristen?
It was 2 years.
Right. And so, and that's a good, this is kind of a, these are judgment calls, right? The act is pretty flexible, but I could easily see us funding a project, right? I could easily see it being tied to a particular project that might extend beyond 2 years, might.
Sure.
But this is kind of tacking pretty much right along with the prior funding that we did for Karen Sonnenberg's position. Okay.
So if we were funding a timeline related to a project, would the position then be very specific to the project? Versus it's a generalized administrative assistant, which also will be doing some other stuff.
I don't, Artie, I don't know. That's hypothetical, and that's something for the committee and their judgment to, decision to make. But
we invite those questions next month, or definitely.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Their answers, and I invite those questions next month.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and a question from Dermot, Mr. Dermot.
No, I think Artie kind of hit where I was going, so thanks, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so now let's make the motion. I'll make the motion again that the Community Preservation Committee determine that CPC application FY 2023-04 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of community housing. Can I have a second for that? Second, anyone?
Second.
All right, second is by Artie Crocker. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll have a vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker. Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, now we're on to FY 23-05. This is a request by Needham Public Schools for funding in connection with the redevelopment, rehabilitation of the Emery Grover renovation project. We have seen this before. I guess we all agree that it fits within the category of historic preservation. Does anybody dispute that in any way? Okay, so why don't we make the motion and we can have a discussion? Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I will move that the Community Preservation Committee determine that CPC application FY 2023-05 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of historic preservation.
And I will second.
All right, seconded by Rich Foster. Discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, that brings us to FY 2023-06. We're beginning now with the applications that, because of my schedule, I haven't printed out. So it looks like I'm looking right at you, but I'm actually looking at a different screen temporarily. Okay, so this is an application by the Park and Rec Commission for a feasibility study of the cricket field building. This would then fall under the category under recreation. And if you'd like, I'll just quickly run through that. So recreation can be funded for the acquisition, creation, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of land for recreational use. And you'll see that this is essentially real property. And the question might be, well, can we fund basically feasibility and reconstruction of a building? And in fact, under rehabilitation, which is one of the approved areas, rehabilitation includes capital improvements and extraordinary repairs. And capital improvements includes reconstruction, alteration of real property, and basically affixing things like swing sets and buildings to recreational property. And then there are some restrictions, things you can't do, like build a field house. But if folks have any other comments or questions about that or dispute that, please, or questions, please raise your hand.
I have one.
Go ahead, Reg.
So I'd raise this as more of a point of order at what you tried to start with in the beginning of the meeting, and my own, offer my own opinion, which is when I saw applications number 6 through 11, as a new member of the board, but a former member, I had a sense of deja vu all over again. And rather than listening to you repeat your analysis 5 more times, I would wonder whether you wanted to raise, and since we don't have Rick recusing himself from an individual application anymore, I would certainly be in favor of looking at applications 6 through 11 as a group that has various kinds of Parks and Rec and DPW projects that have, achieved this first hurdle many times before, and maybe shorten the remainder of the meeting by considering just whether there are any objections or questions to any of these ones from going forward to the next part of the process.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Let's do, I have no problem with doing that with 6, 7, and 8, which are pretty squarely kind of park and rec, capital improvement requests, either for feasibility studies or actual construction. So we can discuss 6, 7, and 8 now. So and I don't have a problem with that. Any committee members object? Okay, so let's discuss. So that's 6. 7 is a request for the renovation of the high school tennis court. And 8 is a request concerning construction of Claxton Field. We had previously funded a design for the work done on Claxton Field. So I think that we all know what those involve, and they are essentially, they all fit pretty squarely into the area of recreational resources, and they're basically capital improvements. So let's discuss those now and see if anyone has any particular questions regarding each of them. Chris Gersel is here probably to answer questions that you might have about them. And then we can vote on them separately. Okay, so 6, 7, and 8. Any questions? Okay, so then
7. I mean, right now it's, I mean, I don't think it's going to be clear. It's not a lot of money, not a big deal, but it doesn't seem to be clear right now that eventually what's going to happen is going to actually fall into CPC funding. It may just fall under a little bit more maintenance. So they're going to be looking at to see what they need to do. So we don't do maintenance. Is it really just a major maintenance type of thing going on with the tennis courts? I don't believe that falls under our category, maintenance.
May I respond, Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
In regards to Article FY 2307, this, if you've seen these courts, maintenance isn't going to do the trick. This is something that is going to have to be redone. It is a safety issue right now that is not just cosmetic. It is severe safety issues that crevices are actually on the tennis courts right now that a simple resurfacing job will not happen. It can't work. It has to be redone for the safety of the players and for the school. So in regards to maintenance, I don't want to say it's not going to fall into that, but it's not going to be a maintenance program. It's going to be a complete resurfacing and redo of the tennis courts.
But that isn't what the request says.
I know, but it says for both.
Aid in the decision to either resurface or completely renovate.
Which
All right, so can I intervene here? Because, and normally we can go one of two ways. Normally we, in this circumstance, if we do have questions about whether or not it's maintenance or actually capital improvement, then we ask for additional information from the applicant. We table the matter, and we can certainly do that. But I do want to point out to the question by Artie that in the project summary, the first two sentences are that the high school tennis courts are no longer safe for play. And so, that's the first sentence, which would mean to me that there is going to be a significant amount of work that needs to be done. Capital improvements, and maybe we should table this, but there may be enough information there for us to go forward with it. But capital improvements involves reconstruction or alteration that materially adds to the value of the property and becomes part of the property. And then maintenance is incidental repairs, which neither materially add to the value of the property nor appreciably prolong the property's life, but keep the property in a condition of fitness, efficiency, or readiness. So what there seem to be saying in this application is that the property is not in condition of fitness and readiness. And it seems pretty clear to me that they're not asking for incidental repairs. If
Well, I
you-
wasn't sure, for example, I don't know the difference between like decision to either resurface or completely renovate. So I don't know.
So-
what-
Okay, and I just want to point out, and again, I'm not trying to push this through, but I do, just for your information purposes, when it came to the DeFazio track, for example, we did not completely renovate. We did resurface, right? But it was a capital improvement because it was a reconstruction or alteration of the property, that material that extended the property's life.
Good point.
So it's something to consider, okay?
Yeah, good, no, good point, Peter. Good point.
Okay, all right, so if you feel comfortable with that, and if, and again, other members, remember, we do have a path that we say, we want some additional information, we want to table this, we'll bring it back next month, but if you feel comfortable with the information that you have, then we can vote, okay? So why don't we put so question, Mr. Durham?
Is it okay to ask now?
Absolutely.
May I direct a question to my colleague, Mr. Gerstle?
Yes.
Did you write this application, Chris?
No, I did not. Are we referring to number 6, number 7? Which one in particular?
7, the tennis court issue.
That was actually written by our directors, Miss Stacy Mulroy.
Excellent. Okay. I think, as you've heard me say in these meetings before, words matter. My brutal interpretation of this is they're asking for money to make a decision. That's how I read this application. They're not telling us what they're doing. They're asking us for money to make a decision. And I don't know if that's applicable. I'd rather have them say, we're going to rebuild. This is what it costs. Do you want to support us?
Well,
And I don't-
actually, this is, well, oh, wait a minute, this is design request.
Mhm.
And so as part of the design, they're going to, I read it as design request. As part of the request, we're going to determine whether or not we need to actually do a complete, gut rehab, rebuild, or we can get away with with resurfacing. That's how I view that.
Oh, it's up in the title, the word design. Okay, that would be helpful if that was in the summary.
I would
Okay,
agree. And also, it just as a way of reading this, I would read, remember, these are lay people who are drafting these applications.
understood.
I would read the application as a whole. And with the benefit being, in an effort at reading it and understanding it in a coherent way.
Okay, but can we assume because that word design is up there that in the project summary, this project will evaluate blah, 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 and then prepare design documents based on the decision made?
So why don't we do this?
I agree.
Okay, so why don't we table
Feedback.
this?
That is good
Okay.
feedback. Thank you.
It's fine. We can table this and we can ask for further clarification and we can bring it up for the question of eligibility at our December 22nd meeting. That's a fair question.
And I do this on all our applications. You all know that. I just want to make sure we do our work properly and that we work with each partner properly.
Good. That's an excellent point. Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Zimbo.
Mr. Chair, two questions. Well, first, a statement. These 3 applications are really what prompted my initial discussion about needing additional information as far as future costs are concerned and estimates and so on and so forth. So I just pulled these up as examples. For example, with that the cricket field building, we got 50,000 estimated total project cost. I'm not sure 50,000 is correct. The estimated total project cost is going to potentially be closer to $1 million or some number much higher than that. That's the way I would interpret this as I'm looking at it. It's not the estimated total cost for this project. I would say the estimated total cost for the project going forward as well. So I just bring that up. But
No.
my
It's an excellent point.
my
Good feedback.
question revolves around once we receive an application such as this, do we allow for amendments or verbiage change to the application to help clarify things?
We have requested amendments to applications, yes. And we've
And-
we've amended them up until the moment where we're going to draft our town warrant, or the
Right.
warrant.
So might I suggest that the proponents think about rewording this particular application to address the comments that were made?
Rick, wouldn't the same thing hold true then for the tennis courts? As far as the total?
That's what I
total
meant, the
budget?
tennis, I was referring to the tennis courts. Art.
Well, tennis course is a little important because we would a little, Bob's point is technical but accurate, which is, well, we fund design, we just fund feasibility, we fund construction. What is this? What are you doing?
And that's where I get to the amending the application. When they come back. the application
We have
should be-
asked for amendments. I think that at one year, it may have been this last year, where we had a presentation by the proponent, and Bob pointed out that actually this isn't quite what it says here. So I'm in support of it, but it doesn't say it. So we need.
That's how I
to
feel about
amend-
the tennis courts.
So we need to amend this. And so I think it's fine to defer, right? I think it's fine to defer the question, have it, it's cleaner. It's much cleaner to defer it and resubmit it to us. It's much cleaner. Now, your question, if I may, your question, which is, I want to know what the total project cost is. I think that that's really can get teased out as part of the due diligence.
Right, no, I agree. I agree. Not to
Okay.
cut you off, but I agree.
Okay,
Can I ask a question if you don't mind, Mr. Chair?
yes.
In regards to, number 6 and number 7, aren't we doing a feasibility study to find out what those estimated project costs are going to be? Like, we're doing the design that's costing to do the tennis courts. It's costing us $50,000. Do you want the Park and Rec to put in a placeholder number to what we anticipate it's going to be?
Yes.
So for the
Yeah.
first one, for the cricket
No,
field, we're putting
wait,
in
what?
$50,000 for the feasibility study, which is what it's going to cost. But then you want us to put a placeholder number of, say, as Mr. Zambone said, $1 million for the estimated cost as just I don't want to say a guess, but a rough estimate.
No, I don't think that that's fair to anyone to do that. I think that that information is important for us to have as part of our due diligence. That's how I view that, because that's a due diligence question. What is the approximate cost, along with what are the maintenance costs for this, right? It's how much does it cost to maintain the building? How much is it going to cost to actually construct the building? I don't know, this is my opinion, but I don't know that it's fair to ask the proponent before they even spend a nickel on design, what they think the anticipated cost of construction is going to be, right? I don't think it's fair to do that to them. I do think it's fair to kind of come up with some sort of estimate in connection with our due diligence. All right, we'll go with Reg first and then Rick. Reg.
So I would like to defer the rest of this discussion to when we're considering reforming the application. Because actually, even tonight, we have 3 examples, not just 2, but 3 examples of different ways that people have interpreted the current application. We have the example of the tennis court, which is, we're asking for $50,000 to do the design, and we're expecting to spend $50,000. We have the example with Emery Grover application, which says we're asking for $6 million, and we expect the entire project to cost $20 million. And we also have another one of our applications where it's the example of saying we're asking for $195,000 or $197,000 to fund the executive director position, the assistant executive director, and we will be kicking in 50% match on that. So I think we should capture that. Maybe Cecilia can capture that. 3 different ways that this, question, has been answered already tonight. This, and maybe that's something we can clarify down the road when we put out the 22 application.
Okay. Rick Zimbo, comment.
Yeah, I just, not to necessarily disagree with my chair, but I will. The point I'm trying to make is, first of all, I'm not asking for them to put a number on this initial request of what the total project cost will be.
Mhm.
But in order for us to do our 5-year financial model, and in order for us to determine whether or not we can afford $6 million for Emery Grover, we have to have an idea as to what this particular building is going to cost. And if that's a back of the envelope estimate, and I think it's somewhere even now, there's a dollar value earmarked in the 5-year capital plan for this building. So all I'm suggesting is that between now and the time we actually vote on the expenditure, that we have all this money, because when we wrap it all together in our financial plan, we're going to need to know that so that we can plan for whatever we're going to vote for, be it 6 million, 8 million, 2 million for Emery Grover. And so that's the only reason why I'm pushing this.
I thought that I agreed with, that's what I agree with you.
Okay,
Right.
fine.
I was just saying, I don't know that we need to put that in the application, but that's.
Oh, no,
information.
no.
That was it.
Okay, good.
Because he was
I
talking, because
misunderstood.
okay, no, I agree with you completely. That makes complete sense.
I misunderstood. Move on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I actually thought that there was another reason for it, which is, well, at any rate,
My bad.
No, it's fine. Okay, good. So I think that's a good standard. Do we feel comfortable with that? You understand what we're trying to do? We got a lot of requests coming from a lot of different places, and we have a finite amount of money. We're trying to plan appropriately. It all came to a real head when it came to the big request from the Needham Public Schools for a $12 million request, essentially, for Emery Grover. And so we're kind of trying to manage a lot of requests coming from a lot of really good projects and put it in a big capital plan that extends out over a 5-year period. So the more information we have about what the actual costs are going to be, and the sooner we get it, the better off we're going to be, right? That's kind of a principle we're operating. Okay. So now let's see where we are at. We have discussed our cricket field, the tennis court, Claxton Field. I will begin by making a motion with respect to 2306, and we'll use the same language that I had used prior to that, and that would be funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of recreation, and that is for Cricket Fieldhouse. So that would be my motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And then we will have that's Mr. Dermody, and now we'll have our roll call vote. And we'll begin with Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
You're muted, Reg.
Reg,
Aye.
Thumbs up.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, that brings us to FY 2307. This is the high school tennis court renovation. And what I would propose that we do is that we move to defer the question of determining whether the application is subject to funding under the CPC.
May I second that?
Okay, so it's a motion by Pingator, seconded by Dermody, and we will have our roll call vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, now we are up to FY 2308, this is Claxton Field construction. And I will move that the Community Preservation Committee determined that CPC application FY 2308 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of recreation. Can I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have our vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
aye,
and the chair votes aye. Now we are on to the Town of Needham DPW Park and Rec boat launch. I think that we all agree, but I just want to focus on that for a minute. I had deferred on that because I believe, okay, it is under recreation. I guess it could have been under, it could have included open space as well. And so it is recreation, and I would say the same analysis would apply with respect to the prior three applications. So do we have any further discussion on the question of eligibility as a recreation capital improvement? None? Okay, hearing none, I'll make this motion. Same motion that we have tracked, and that is with respect to FY 23 08. Do I have that right? 9, thank you very much. That it is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of recreation. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, now we'll have any further discussion. Hearing none, we'll have our vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Approve.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
aye,
and the chair votes aye. Now we are on to Walker Pond Phase 2. We had received a lot of information concerning this last year, and I think the committees, we had 2 new members, but this is an application concerning the restoration of Walker Pond. 2 elements appear to be part of this application. One is basically kind of clearing of the invasive species in the pond. And the second appears also to have to do with some sort of ongoing application of chemicals, herbicides, and algicides to the pond. So it would appear to me to fall under recreation, restoration. Can we have a discussion regarding that? Does anyone have any views that they want to express concerning this application? And the question of eligibility. Okay, Bricks and Bone.
Mr. Chair, myself and Laura Dorfman worked on this project last year until it got transferred to town funding. This is kind of for the benefit of the new members of the committee. There's 2 aspects of this that will need to be discussed in greater detail. The question really is the application of chemicals, herbicides, and algicides to the pond. Could and should that be considered maintenance? Typically, those applications are not one-time applications. They're applications that occur over multiple times over the course of a year or 2. Part of the problem is this originally got to this pond originally got to this status because there were nutrients being sent into the pond. And if that were to continue, in spite of the best efforts to prevent it, this could become an ongoing maintenance issue. One could argue that the first application is part of the restoration process. But that's something I think needs to be ferreted out as part of the whole question and answer on this. The second part of this is that I had heard indirectly, not directly, but indirectly, that the town was seeking funds for the cleanup of the reservoir, external funds for the cleanup of the reservoir, as well as this particular project, the Walker Pond. And they were looking fairly optimistic at being able to fund this from another source. And I would like to just suggest that we get clarification on those issues before we vote eligibility.
Okay.
I can speak to that. We are looking to fund the Walker Pond through the ARPA money that we have. We just haven't gotten confirmation that that's possible yet. So we wanted to put this in as a kind of a safety net, just in case we are unable to fund it through the ARPA funds, but we are actively looking into that right now.
All right, does anyone have any further questions? All right, I have Artie, go ahead.
To pick up where just to follow up on what Rick was talking about, we had certainly talked about the fact that where does this fall in the maintenance, and where does this fall as far as if nothing's solved, if nothing's actually solved of why this is happening, then what are we actually funding? I mean, I'd rather fund fixing the problem itself than fixing the result of the problem. So yeah, I have some questions as far as what's actually going to happen in the future.
Okay, so, all right, Rick's kind of, all right, you raised a good, that was another question that we had last year, which was the inflows, we want to address the inflows, and then there was a request to fund the inflows, and we declined. And the town ended up addressing that, right? So the cause of the problem is being addressed. And Rick is addressing this other issue, which is, well, they're going to get rid of the invasive species. The inflows are being addressed, but it may not be adequate because there's also this suggestion that we should go with what we know. We know our due diligence is going to reveal that it's a program. It's a maintenance program to basically put chemicals into the pond. And part of this request is going to be a request to fund that maintenance project. I mean, there's no other way to describe it than a maintenance project. So so I think there are different ways of addressing that. I think that we can vote on the question of eligibility when it comes to, we're pretty clear about it's eligible when it comes to addressing the invasive species and cleaning out the pond. We do have questions regarding whether or not all aspects of the application are subject to eligibility under the act or should be funded. So I think that we can word the resolution in that way. Okay, I'll just point that out to the committee. I think that we can word that resolution in order to kind of put everyone on notice. This is what we're doing, and we're going to be doing some additional examination on whether or not we should be funding this. So that's one approach. I do have a question for Cecilia, which is, has there been a determination that ARPA funds can be used in connection with the restoration of the town reservoir? Because there's no application for that.
Yes, we are looking to do that. We're probably looking to do that project out of it. We pushed that project to next fiscal year, which is why there's no application for that.
Okay, that explains that question. All right, that's why I was trying to figure out if there's some, okay. All right, so that reason why go ahead.
Peter, no, I'm sorry, Bob. I know you had your hand. I'm sorry. Just to follow up, do we know for a fact if there's anything being done to clean up the inflow? I mean, talking about it is one thing, but I don't know of anything actually occurring, do we?
Well, we know that it was funded last year, but that we can find that out as part of our due diligence. Right?
Sorry, Bob.
Okay, so Bob.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Artie. Yeah, I still have concerns about the causes of the situation there. Just always have been and will bring it up again as part of our ongoing discussion. So I just want to say that. And then, you know the act far better than I, certainly, Peter. Does the act speak specifically to, aside from whether it be in a maintenance or repair issue, the actual application of chemicals, herbicides, and algicides?
It does not.
Okay.
But and now remember, the act is very flexible and it's it's pretty malleable,
Yeah.
so it's flexible. Okay, Rick Zimbo.
Yeah, Peter, just to respond to Bob's question. Last year, when we were doing research on the project, we went to the database at the CPA Coalition. And in there were a number of projects similar to this one, where CPA funds were used for the initial cleanup. And then anything beyond that was maintenance. And I believe it included mechanical raking. I think it also included some chemical treatment.
Okay.
But, part of all of this was also, to get back to Artie's point, I believe someone was supposed to be taking water samples that we weren't paying for, but someone else was paying for it, to determine what was happening with the inflow and was it being mitigated in the proper fashion. So again, that might be something down the road for whoever gets this assignment.
Okay, further comments or questions? Okay, so I guess what I'm gonna I'd like a little bit of input on the resolution. So what I think that we may want to make it clear that we're not making the determination tonight that something that we determine to be maintenance that's embedded as part of the application is actually eligible for funding under the act. I mean, again,
Could we just state something as simple, we voted to be eligible as long as it meets with the act?
well, that's a little bit like saying, well,
Or what was, because the other ones, we sort of state that we believe that it met the act. This I'm sort of,
I think that I guess our record is clear here, that we have some questions about whether or not the chemical program would be maintenance and not eligible under the act, or it could be, Rick has pointed out, I think Rick is saying that he found on the database that there are proposals similar to this. Rick, did they actually fund a multi-year maintenance program?
No, it was just the initial, Peter.
It was just.
It was not
cleaning?
multi-year. It was just the
Okay.
initial cleanup was all that was funded with CPA funds.
So can't we expect clarification? We would approve the application pending clarification of the application of chemicals, which is in question here in the minds of the CPC members.
Okay, good. That's good language. So let's work on that. And so I'm going to read it, and then we'll have Joe Barnes kind of wordsmith it with me as we go along. Okay, so we'll move that the Community Preservation Committee determines that CPC application FY 2310 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of, I'm sorry, is this recreation or open space? I don't have it in front of me.
It's
And
both.
that- It's both. Okay, under the category of recreation and open space, subject. And Joe, can we make our,
I think it said subject or pending clarification of the use of chemicals as a deterrent. Maybe we're getting too much words here, too many words.
wait a minute, subject to, why don't we say this? Subject to the use, the multi-year use of chemicals treatment.
Period.
Period,
Okay.
yeah, stop then,
Fine, period. Good enough. We just want to clean it on the record.
right.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Second, we'll make Joe Barnes second. We got to get his prints on it, right? Okay, Okay, Joe, you second
That's
that?
fine, sure, I second it.
Okay, good. All right, so now further discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. Roll call vote. Barnes,
Aye,
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Approve.
Foster. Reg,
Thumbs up.
Aye.
aye, okay. Zimbo, oh, Gersel, please.
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, that brings us to the FY 2311 Needham Community Farm. And this is pretty much an expanded version of their pilot program that we funded last year. It has to do with the reconstruction and construction of beds for the community farm. And so it's a much larger scale than what we had originally funded, and therefore for a much larger amount. I'll note that the act specifically makes reference to supporting community farms as part of the Community Preservation Act. And this would appear to me to be a capital improvement in connection with the recreational use of that property. If you disagree with me, please let me know. We've already basically made a determination last year that it's fun, that we can fund this under the act. Questions? Comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to have let me make the resolution. Move that the Community Preservation Committee determine that CPC application FY 2311 is eligible for funding under the Community Preservation Act under the category of recreation and open space. I'll make that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Who's that? I didn't see.
Dermody Barnes.
Oh,
Nice squeeze play, Joe.
Yeah,
thought I had friends on this call.
poor Chris.
That's good. Or Chris. I think it's Chris.
No.
I heard-
Please give it to those guys.
All right. All right, then it has to be Bob Dermody. Actually, you know what? No, you were late. Joe Barnes. Or actually, Joe was,
Joe was
You're
late too.
you were late. Joe was less late. Joe
Boy, we thin skinned.
Barnes is the, yes. Okay. No, everyone has to pay a price. All right. So, second by Barnes. Okay, we'll have a further discussion. Hearing none, let's have our vote. Barnes,
Aye,
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zimbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so now that brings us now to the final one, which is a placeholder purchase of open space. And I have to tell you, I don't know how we usually handle this. Do we vote on eligibility and then just table it? So we do. Okay, purchase of open space.
Yeah, I think so.
That falls under the act. I'll make that motion. Have a
Chris
track.
Gershel seconds.
Okay, good. And so Chris Gersel seconds it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
We have a roll call vote. Barnes,
aye,
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Yes.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Yes.
Pingator. Oh, me, aye, Zimbone.
Aye.
Sorry. Okay, so that brings us to the final housekeeping matter that we have for this evening, and that is assigning liaisons to this book of business that we have. Okay. So what I'd like you to do, I have a lineup. Okay, and what I'd like you to do is, if you have a pen and pad, just kind of write the names, and then we'll see. You'll see that. Just hear me out until the very end, and then we can juggle around if we want. Okay, because there's some method to my madness, and so I'll go in alphabetical order only because that's how I had arranged it by member. So here's, and again, this is all subject to discussion. So we'll start, okay? First up is Barnes. Let's pencil in next to Joe's name, 07 and 05. That is, oh, the tennis court. Oh, that's all right. That tennis court's been deferred. So let's just put that on the side. Right now, let's pencil in your name for 05. I assume 07 is going to come back. So let's pencil in 07. Next up is Artie Crocker. What I'd like to do is pencil in 11. That's Community Farm. Next up is Dermody.
Oh, hold, Pete, why don't I do, I should probably do Claxton Field.
You want Claxton Field?
Also, why don't I do Claxton Field also?
You want to do Claxton Field also? Okay, good. Because you can do it with me.
I'd say the boat launch, but I think Chris would not want me to do that.
All right, good. Wait a minute. You're going to do that with me then. Okay, that's great. So
Well,
Crocker is 11.
Oh,
and
what am I gonna do? What am I doing with you, Pete?
Claxton Field.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. In fact, and so,
Careful what you asked for.
all right, no, but that's fine because I'll do 11 and 08 with you. I think that's what we'll do. Okay, good. All right, so next, Dermody.
Put me in,
07,
coach.
07
Yep.
and 05.
07 and 05.
So it's the Barnes and Dermody team.
I
on
like it.
Rick Rover and the tennis courts, because
Yep.
I know that Joe plays tennis
All right.
and
We can
so
play
maybe-
doubles, Joe.
He may have to
Maybe.
recuse himself.
maybe
Yeah, I
he
was
should
gonna say- I was
recuse
gonna say, I
himself.
think Joe should recuse himself.
I think he should recuse himself. Okay, good. That's good.
You
So-
saw me play, you'd want me to recuse myself.
So what? All right, so now put this down. This is for Cecilia and Kristen. And you'll see this will become clear in the end. Under Dorfman, put 10 because it's Walker Pond. She's been on Walker Pond. And then I think this makes sense. I like Dorfman. What I want is Dorfman, Zambone, and Gersel to work collectively on applications 01 through 04. So Laura's got a lot of energy in this area. Chris is a neighbor of one of the developments. Rick is, these are big numbers, and it's always helpful to have someone with some experience on finance looking at this stuff. Okay, so that's my
Except for
thinking.
number 3, Peter.
Pardon me?
Except for number 3.
Oh, yeah, except for number 3. Good point.
Good
Good. So
catch.
you're off. Good. You're off number 3. Okay, and then I also want Zambone to be on 10 Walker Pond because he was on it in the past. So now we're going to go back. So Zambone's got his assignments. Foster, trying to go a little light on Reg here. So then, because he's got a lot of stuff going on, so I put him on 09, which is the boat launch. Okay. And pencil in, I think that's, what's our open space? 12. Pencil in 12 next to your name too, Reg. Okay.
Reg, I had that one last year. It's pretty easy.
So it may not be anything, okay? Next up is Gersel. Oh yes, Gersel's
1
on
through 4
1 through 4.
with the dream team.
McKnight, Jean hasn't done this before, but she's got a wealth of experience and knowledge. I usually have these people work in tandem, but she doesn't need to do that. I was going to assign her to the Cricket Fieldhouse feasibility study, 06. And then me, I'll work with Artie on 08 and 11. And Zambone already has his assignments. All right, so now let me go back. And then we're going to say, how do you feel about that? Questions? Good? Everybody good?
Good.
Now the teamwork is the dream work. Okay, teamwork's the dream work. Okay,
Okay, coach.
Ian, coach, put me in.
okay. So that's it. So now what I'd like you to do is now go back to my scribbles on form document requests. And with, and think about, with respect to these applications, how these 15, 16 requests that Laura and I put together fit for your applications. And put together, you can cut and paste, but we're gonna run it all through Cecilia. She's distributing the information just so there's no question about where it comes from. You guys originate it, send it to Cecilia. She'll send it out to the project, to the applicants. You guys can come in, you guys can start your work now, okay, anytime. And then that brings us to the last item, okay? Stay with me. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed, who has Claxton and who has Cricket?
Okay, so Cricket is McKnight.
No.
Claxton is me and Artie,
Oh, okay, thank you.
okay?
Can I, when you finish this, Peter, can you go through the numbers again? I didn't write them down. I'm putting them on a computer and my skill here with the keyboard is limited.
Can I suggest that you just publish this to us by email tomorrow? And I had a similar problem keeping track of all the moving.
I have it, Peter. I can share my screen if you want.
And Peter, I can talk to you, make sure I have it all right, and just send it out so everyone, including people who aren't here, get the full list.
That'd be helpful.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, good. I think I have it. Okay, and okay. Good, so we'll send it out by email tomorrow. I'll get with Cecilia, we'll send it out. All right,
Thank
now
you.
the next thing is, remember, our work is kind of front loaded and then it makes it a little easier for us. So we do our due diligence and we have presentations by the applicants, okay? And we can start at presentations by the applicants as early as our next meeting, okay? So we can, so now I will reveal, I think Reg Foster said he's available to make the presentations on the 22nd. Are you available, Reg, to make presentations?
We were talking about January 12th.
Oh, okay. All right, well, what are we gonna do at our next meeting?
Well, that was what I was wondering too.
Can we bring, Kristen, Cecilia, ideas?
Hang out, sing Christmas carols. Like, we got tons of things.
So here's my question. So I was under the impression that we're generating questions
Mhm.
that will be going out to all the applicants that they need to address once we get into the formal process of receiving their presentations and questions that the advocates, the ombudsman, I'm lacking the word,
Coordinator.
yes, they will work with the individual applicants to make sure that they, when they come to us, is, their answers are sort of fully baked. And that process starts at the meeting of the 12th. And so I was under the impression that for the 22nd, the meeting of the 22nd that we have in our calendar, that we would have some deadline to all generate those questions and consolidate out. Maybe Cecilia is doing this to consolidate them into a comprehensive list that go out to the applicants by the 1st of January, as we've advertised, so that they then can, work on those questions. And when they come to us, they've got the answers, hopefully fairly completely thought through, and we don't have to go through a lot of additional kind of roundabout to get to where we need to be in February and early
Okay.
March.
All right, good. So that, I like that idea. So that is that we put together a deadline for all of us to go through these and come up with some specific questions that you have, assuming that the general ones are going to be answered, through these general requests. And forward those to Cecilia. We need a deadline for that process to happen and then have her do a compilation, and then we can run through them and have a quick discussion about the projects on the 22nd, and then make sure that's all out to the applicants shortly thereafter, and then they're ready for that information comes back to us, and we're ready for presentations as early as that's the 12th of January. Is that what you're saying, Reg?
That's what I'm saying. And I did suggest to you that I felt that we would be ready for the 12th if you're looking for somebody to go first.
Okay, good. We're looking for someone to go first. That would make sense. Have you guys come on. You're ready. You told us you're ready. And I know, and so that's good. It's a good way for us to schedule our work. And we can discuss further anyone else that we may want to have on the 12th. It may just be that we want to just have a housing authority make their presentations on the 12th. That takes care of 4 of the applications. Maybe we'll figure that out. Okay.
So,
All right, go ahead. So,
if you guys can get me any possible questions by next Friday, so that would be the 17th, I can compile them over the weekend and get them to you by Monday before our meeting. If that works for everyone.
okay, so 12/17.
Works for me.
Okay, good.
And
So
then
here-
is there anything we need for the Park and Rec tennis courts application by the 22nd that you would like me to reach out to the applicant on?
I'm going to defer. All right, Dermody, what would you like?
Just some clarification on like the actual deliverable that will be purchased with this money. Is it a report? Is it a design? Is it design documents? Does it include a study and the design? Does it
Are they
include
talking
matrix of decisions? Just more specifics of what we're buying. Sorry to be
Is
so
it
blunt, but
resurfacing? Is it construction? Clarification on exactly what the need is.
yeah, I think that's with respect to the application. I don't want to verge into due diligence questions just yet, but just, if a town meeting member very bluntly said, what are we getting for this money? Just, much more specific about, is it a set of drawings? Who will do the drawings? How long does it take? Can they be repeated on other tennis courts in the future? Can they use the same process if, when Mills or Newman or whatever they has come up for renovation? Can we maybe use some of that information?
Well, that's what's way beyond the question of eligibility on that. That's part of
can I
due
have
diligence.
just a quick question on this is like, because we have our Park and Rec meeting on Monday. I have to go back to Park and Rec and say it got deferred because of this, that the property itself, I think, falls under recreation. Is that what we're questioning, or are we questioning the scope of the work? Because we just did the same thing with the Walker Pond, that we want clarification on, is it maintenance, is it something else? But we deemed it eligible for open space and recreation. Why does the tennis courts not fall into a category like that? Because it is a recreational piece. Why does that one have to get deferred?
Walker Pond is different because Walker Pond, there's quite clearly the component of Walker Pond. There is a component of Walker Pond that's eligible. That is the restoration of the pond, the invasive species. It's clear. Then we have an open question about whether or not this application of herbicides is maintenance or not. So we actually made it a subject too. So if they actually came up, it's okay. So, and here, the question really was, what is it? This is a little different because we're actually asking, what is the deliverable? Is it design? Is this a question for design? Is this a question for design funds? What is it? If it's a question for, we need money to determine whether or not it should be resurfaced or reconstructed, that's okay. I think that may be eligible under the act. Or if it is a question about whether or not it should be redesigned or reconstructed or resurfaced, and design funds in connection therewith, that's okay too. But we're not really clear about what it is that they're asking for.
I see it differently. I mean, you brought up the point of the track resurfacing. At the time that we had the track up there, did we defer the track because we wanted the clarification on what we were going to get out of it? Did we defer that eligibility?
No, because the track was a request for funds to resurface the track in order to extend its useful life. Now, if you said a request for funds to resurface the tennis court in order to extend its useful life, fine. If you said request to dig up the tennis court and build us a new one, fine. But this one kind of doesn't say either one. And we're left with the hope that it's design funds. And we're just asking for some clarification.
All right.
I think it's a fair question, and actually what Chris, we had a discussion about it and we got a vote. So,
Right. I know. I'm just what I have to go back to the Park and Rec with. I want to make sure I'm communicating the right stuff.
okay. So
That's what I want to get through.
all right, wait, two hands up. We'll start with Zumba.
Yeah, the simplest answer to that question, Chris, from my perspective, is you go back and tell them that the application was poorly worded. The summary doesn't tell what the whole story is, and the summary is what's usually extracted and put into the warrant as an explanation of the article. So we need a clear explanation of the summary of the project. And that's the only reason. Would it qualify? Yeah, probably. But the fact of the matter is that you can't tell that from the summary. That's all. That's my interpretation.
I mean, I look into the same. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to beat this to death. We questioned that same thing with Walker Pond, but we still deemed it eligible. We wanted more clarification on the scope of it. And again, I'm not trying to pick on it. It's just, I see it that way of that. I'm looking at two of the same things and one got deferred and one didn't.
All right.
But I will go back and
I think
I'll have them reword and fix the language of it. So when it comes back on the 22nd, it will be clear.
All right, Dermot.
Yeah, Chris, just because I brought it up, I see your point, but the way I look at it is similar to what Rick said, and it's not an issue of what bucket, it's recreation. I don't think that's the issue. It's the word design appears once and only once, and that's in the title of the project, and the summary never says this is what will be designed, and a laundry list of the components, the court, the fence, the whatever, all of that, the actual products that will be designed, because the summary indicates a decision needs to be made. Once a decision is made, a design can be made. And that's all I'm looking for, is a sentence that says, this is what will be designed, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, exactly, Bob, exactly, because it sounds like they're just gonna do it, they're just gonna look in and say, we're gonna study it and decide, should it be, what's gonna happen? There's no, what exactly is the outcome? It doesn't sound like there's actually a design coming forward.
I think your lead in, Chris, is that it certainly appears as though this application will be approved for consideration. Clarification is what they need. They just need better wording. So
Yeah, and I don't know that we need to say it's poorly worded, but we can say it needs some clarification. By the way, that summary ends up being on the warrant. And so we want to minimize the amount of questions we're going to have on town meeting about it. Okay, we're really helping. We're helping you. Okay,
Understood.
we are. Okay, we're helping you. All right. I think that's all I have. If anyone else has any other comments, let's hear them. Otherwise, okay, Cecilia.
I have one thing but I want to just bring it up at the very end of the meeting, a little bit of bad news. So if everybody wants to, if there's no other comments, I'll share our news.
Say that and then not tell us.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cecilia. Share that.
Our town engineer, Tony Delgado, passed away unexpectedly yesterday.
Oh my
Holy
God.
cow.
no, Really?
Wow, I'm very sorry. Wow.
So I'm sorry to hear that, and so that is really sad. I feel very sad for Tony's family, especially happening around the holidays that all of us share, most of our various faiths. I'll point out that Tony was a Needham resident who grew up in Needham, went to Needham High, and was a longtime town employee and our town engineer, who, I'm sure loved our town and worked really hard on behalf of us as taxpayers, and worked really hard with the CPC. He had a good relationship with, especially with Paul Albert, who really enjoyed Tony's company and working with Tony. So we're all really going to miss him, and it's really sad. So I guess want to express my condolences to the people who work with him. You're in his department, you see him every day, and now Tony's not going to be there, and that's very sad. And condolences, please extend his condolences in behalf of the committee to his family as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So
sorry.
was this sudden?
Yeah, yeah.
That's sad. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Good guy. Okay. Well, with that, thank you for sharing it, Cecilia. And again, sorry to hear that. We will adjourn our meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and that is by Chris Gersel. Second is by
Second.
Bob Dermody. We'll have our roll call vote. Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gersel,
Aye.
Zambone, and the
Aye.
chair votes aye. We'll follow up with you, gentlemen. Well, we're all gentlemen, yeah, tomorrow, with an email from Cecilia and from me. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kristen and Cecilia, as always.
Good night. Thanks very
Take care.
much, Cecilia and
Thank
Chris.
Everybody.
Thank you.